Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about eggs. I always like to start off with this question. Which is healthier? On the left side of your screen, you see a brown shell egg, and on the right side of your screen, you see a white shell egg. So, which one is healthier? Typically, people associate the brown shell eggs with being organic. So, they automatically assume that the brown shell eggs are organic and they're going to be healthier. But let's take a look at the nutrition facts. So, I took these from Eggland's Best website. These are the nutrition facts panels for brown shell eggs and white shell eggs. You'll see that they are exactly identical. I'll give you a second to take a look just so you can double check. Each egg is 60 calories. There's 4 grams of fat. Carbohydrates, there are none. Protein, 6 grams. Maybe the brown shell has higher micronutrients, vitamins, and minerals. No, you look, they're all exactly the same. So, where does the difference come from? Now, the the reason why these are identical is because these chickens are fed the same diet. So, diet is going to dictate a lot of the nutrition content in the eggs themselves. The fact that they're organic or not organic has to do a lot again with the feed that the chickens are fed, the way that the chickens are raised, but the color of the shell is not an indicator of organic or not organic. You can have white shell eggs that are organic, and you can have brown shell eggs that are not organic. So shell color is not an indicator of organic or better nutritional value or better for you at all. So you might be wondering, what is the difference in shell color? In years past, students have said that they just assumed that brown shell eggs are more natural because all chickens lay brown eggs and the white ones are just bleached to look cleaner, which eggs are cleaned after they're laid before they're packaged, but that is not the case at all. The difference in shell color has to do only with the variety of chicken laying the egg. So some chickens only lay white eggs. Some chickens or hens, I should say, the female chicken will only lay brown eggs. Some lay eggs that are speckled in color. So the color difference has to do with the type of chicken and nothing else. It's similar to when you look at cows on a farm, you'll see that some cows are brown and white, some cows are black and white. So it's just the variety, it's the difference between the animals. There is a YouTube link for you to check out. It's basically showing you a kid's activity, um, but it is a good demonstration of how strong the membrane is of the shell membrane, which you could see in this image here. It is that skin material that is attached directly to the outer shell. So, what you want to realize in terms of egg structure, the percentage by weight of each component. The shell makes up about 12%, so the outer covering of the shell. The yolk, which contains the germinal disc, is about 30%, and the albumin is the egg white. That's 58%. So, and we have here the chalaza, looks like an anchor lines. These are what hold the yolk in place so that it doesn't get damaged if it was moving around, or so that it doesn't fall to one side of the shell as it's laying down. So it kind of just anchors it in place. And you can see these things, they're like the little white specks that are attached to the yolk if you crack an egg. What we have here is grade A, grade B, grade double A. What this also shows you is an example of how eggs differ during their different states of freshness. So if you crack an egg that's fresh, you'll see that it doesn't spread out very far. The egg white kind of sticks close to the yolk itself. And if you look from a profile, you see the yolk stands up nice and tall compared to grade B, where everything spreads out and flattens out. So again, these are different grades, but if you had a double grade A egg and it was sitting for a long time, for a few weeks, it would spread out. You would lose that freshness. So an egg that stands up tall, if you looked at it from the side or at this bottom image, when you crack the egg onto a griddle or into a frying pan, you know that's a fresh egg. Those of you, or of you that you know that may have an egg allergy, know probably better than anyone else that eggs are in so many different products that the general population consumes. And there are many different functions of eggs in food, such as providing color and flavor in a bread or noodles or pastas, um, flavor in pancakes. They can be used to help in foaming for cakes and desserts. In candy, they help crystal formalization. They stop. I was going to say they help stop crystals from forming in the sugar of candies. You could use them for custards and puddings. In ice cream, the egg yolk, the lecithin in the yolk is used as an emulsifier. So there's a lot of different things. Also, binding. Eggs are used a lot of times when you're breading something, whether it be fish or meat, trying to hold it all together. And of course, in salad dressings and mayonnaise, they're used as an emulsifier. This figure goes over the different sizes of eggs. We have peewee, small, medium, large, extra large, and jumbo. The typical recipe that you'll see is written for large eggs. So if you have medium eggs or extra large or jumbo at home, your recipe can be really off. If you look at the size here, so 5 whole eggs, 5 large eggs is the equivalent to 1 cup. So if your recipe calls for 5 eggs, let's say, and you put in 5 jumbo eggs, you're going to end up with more than a cup of eggs. So your recipe, all the other ingredients would have to be adjusted. There's something else I would like for you to think about for a minute. Why chicken eggs instead of duck, turkey, or any other poultry eggs? Why are chicken eggs the ones that are most popular? Essentially, the reason why chicken eggs are as popular as they are and consumed as widely as they are has to do with the size of the hens, the diet of the hens, the amount of food they are required to be fed per day, and the fact that an egg will an egg will be produced, one egg per chicken per day, typically. So every chicken you have, you know, every day when you go out to that chicken, you're going to have one egg. So other other birds do not lay eggs as frequently. So turkeys are larger, so they require more room, they require more feed, and turkeys usually lay one egg every 3 days. And turkeys don't start laying eggs until they're about 10 weeks older than chickens. So if you were going to sell turkey eggs, you have to keep these birds around and feed them without getting out of anything out of them for 10 weeks longer than if you used chickens. Plus, you would have to have a smaller amount of turkeys because they take up more room, and you're only able to get one turkey egg for every three. So as you scale that up to a farm that produces thousands of chicken eggs a day, that can be reduced drastically. So if you have 1,000 chicken eggs a day in your farm for the same space farm, you'd probably be down to 250 or 300. Egg substitutes, there's another YouTube video link that talks about egg substitutes that are, well, in the video they're vegan substitutes, so they're plant-based. You have chia seeds, which chia seeds, when you soak them in water, start to form a gel, and that gel helps bind baked goods. And applesauce, bananas, they can work, and I'm sure some of you have tried all or most of these, and you find that some work better than others. So predominantly, I'd say chia seeds and ground flax seeds, when water is added, that gelation, that gel product is probably the closest to an egg replicator that you're going to find. That's the one that I would recommend using. A banana in a baked good doesn't really replicate eggs the way that would. It does an okay job, and some of you might argue, but if you have not tried the soaked chia seeds or the flax seeds ground, I suggest you give it a try. Also, um, soaking garbanzo beans is seems to work out pretty well. The next video is about making the perfect meringue. A meringue is basically an egg white that is whipped, and hard meringues are like those meringue cookies that you get at a bakery or a French macaroon. The sides of the sandwich are hard meringues, which are cooked at a low temperature. Basically, at a bakery, you would drop the meringues on the pan and, portion them out and put them in the oven when the oven is turned off overnight, because it'll still be hot. So it'll be like 200 degrees for 10 hours. So a low temperature, long time, because you're really drying them out more than you are baking them. And the soft meringue is more like what you would see on a lemon meringue pie. It almost has a marshmallow consistency. And they are cooked at a higher temperature for a shorter amount of time. And something that could happen with your soft meringues is you could have weeping, like on if they're used as a topping on a lemon meringue pie. That interface between the bottom of the meringue and the top of the lemon custard can create it'll look like a water as a byproduct, so you could start to have weeping occur. that pretty much covers it for the egg review. If you have any questions, send me a message in Canvas or send me an email, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you.